Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well as usual. Welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining me once again. So in today's video, I'm going to do part 2 of my top 20 black metal albums. So if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, in my previous video, I started doing a list of my top 20 black metal albums of all time. And I went through the first 10, just so I wouldn't take up too much of people's time. So today we're going to do the second 10 in the list of 20. And I also, in the previous video, I did some runners up or some honorable mentions. I have some more today as well, but basically we're going through my next main 10 top black metal releases of all time. So if you haven't watched the previous video, feel free to go and do that. And I'd just like to say that from the last video, I got a lot of views and a few new subscriptions and mostly positive feedback. So I really appreciate that. Thanks very much. I hope you continue to watch, and by the way, if you're watching and you're not subscribed yet, please feel free to do so if you enjoy this video. Alright, but without further ado, we will get straight into it. So I'm going to do my, and just if you didn't see the previous video, just please note that while these are my top 20 black metal albums, they are not ranked. They're not in any ranking order, they're just in alphabetical order. So you'll see, but by artist. So yes, I think the last artist I talked about in the top 10 began with E. I'm not going to give it away. So in today, yeah, number 11, we'll start with a letter further down the alphabet, obviously. Enough rambling, enough of this bullshit. Okay, so just before we go into the next 10, I have some other runners up to mention, some other honorable mentions. So these are not part of my top 20 list, but I think they're still really good albums anyway. So first of all, I left out MOONSORROW with Verisakit. I apologize if my Finnish pronunciation is not on point yet, but I can't remember what Verisakit means. I think blood sacrifice or something, but yes, MOONSORROW are a black Viking pagan metal band, folk metal band from Finland. Absolutely excellent, awesome atmosphere, and I just love this album because it sort of, when I first heard this, I was so blown away. It sort of reminded me of, this is what Enslaved could have done if they continued going down the path of albums like Frost, Eld and Blodhem, but particularly Frost. And this one, it just gets so much more powerful and atmospheric, so it sounds really big and grandiose, but like, you know, it's melodic, it uses fretless bass, there's all those elements of black metal there, but also combining it with aspects of Viking metal and folk metal, so absolutely awesome. Like my favorite track on this is the first one, Kahun Kinsi or Kahun Kunsi, I'm not sure how you pronounce it in Finnish, which means bear claw, but just listen to that track in itself. There are 5 tracks on this. It's a very long album. That's perhaps a criticism, that it maybe goes on a bit too long, but if you have the time, it's an awesome album. So this is just another honorable mention. That's MOONSORROW with Verisakit. Now, 2 other runners up, and I'll just mention these very quickly. They're by the same band, a band which probably needs no introduction. Ukraine's Nocturnal MORTUM. This album is To the Gates of Blasphemous Fire, yeah. So this is probably my favorite Nocturnal MORTUM album because I actually have 2 to talk about here as runners up. But yeah, this is absolutely brilliant, just symphonic, bombastic black metal. Some people have compared it a lot to Emperor's Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk. So if you like that album, definitely check this out. And as always, because it's a Ukrainian band, it's like that, but it's imbued with a Middle Eastern flavor in terms of the melodies and the music, but it's symphonic. There's a lot of keyboards imitating string instruments, and really these keyboard melodies and riffs will just stick in your head for days. So this is an absolutely awesome album by Nocturnal MORTUM, To the Gates of Blasphemous Fire. And I also couldn't leave out this as a runner-up. Also by Nocturnal MORTUM, Nechrist or Nechrist. See, it's in Cyrillic here, so I'm not sure how to say it, but yeah, awesome album. This was the first one I heard by this band, and the first song I ever heard by Nocturnal MORTUM was In the Fire of the Wooden Churches, which is very folky. It's sort of like, it's symphonic and there's a lot of keyboards in that song as well, but just the atmosphere is incredible. They even have a flute solo, and I just thought that was really interesting. But this whole album has just a fantastic folky, symphonic, atmospheric ambience, which is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so like, yeah, I won't mention all the songs. My favorite is, yeah, In the Fire of the Wooden Churches, because I heard that first, but that's brilliant. So yeah, these are just some runners up here. So these two Nocturnal MORTUM albums, To the Gates of Blasphemous Fire, Nechrist or Nechrist, and MOONSORROW's Verisakit. All right, but now we're going to go into the second half of my top 20, the official list. So I've already done my official first 10. Now we'll go into number 11. And number 11 in my top 20 black metal albums of all time is, of course, Graveland with Creed of Iron. Yeah, so this album easily makes my top 20. I know I'm not ranking, but this is an absolutely brilliant album. I remember the first time I heard this, it was in the tape trading days, and my friend had burned me a CD and I was playing it in the car, but I was absolutely spellbound by the sheer majesty and atmosphere of this album. It's grand, it's epic, it's symphonic, and the way that the keyboards are used, they almost sound like church organs, you know, like pipes of war. It is just so mammoth and heavy and atmospheric. And in addition to that, it's like, you know, the style of riffing, it's not tremolo riffing. Graveland has a unique style of playing, especially on this album anyway. Oh, it's mainly one guy, Rob Darkin, who does all of the instruments. But yeah, just listen to the riffs and the drums. They sound completely original for black metal, yet at the same time, it is so black metal and it's very atmospheric, and just, it reminds me of the soundtrack to a medieval battle. So this artwork is completely appropriate. I remember an ex-girlfriend of mine said when I played this, she said, this album reminds me of war, and I think that's the idea, yeah. But in terms of a medieval battle, so it could be the sound to a medieval battle, or perhaps, you know, that music that they used to play before medieval battles to pump everyone up. Absolutely awesome. Like, this is the bonus editions that's got some spare tracks, but I'm just going to talk about, you know, the main album. But I have actually spoken about this album before. So yeah, it's got a sort of foreboding classical intro. Blood and Ash, Tyrants of Cruelty is a really mammoth heavy track just to set the tone. But as everyone knows, or maybe you did not, my favorite track on this album is undoubtedly No Mercy in My Heart. That song is just so incredibly atmospheric that I feel empowered when I listen to that song, especially the part where he says, "War now is my life," and the keyboards just lift up. Absolutely incredible. I love that song, and yeah, it's empowering, and it makes my hair stand on end, especially that part in the song where I like when black metal artists do that crow call where they, you know, screeching, but it just sounds so good in that moment. And also you have Ancient Blood and White Beasts of Votan, both really good songs. Speaking of which, the sound, just to give you an idea, this reminds me of the soundtrack to Conan the Barbarian. So if you like that very epic soundtrack, imagine that, the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack crossed with black metal. That's what you have in Creed of Iron. And I know a lot of people said in his earlier days he played more raw black metal, and that's good, but I mean there's a lot of bands that sound like that. But I think he started with this album going in more of an epic Viking direction, and I just love it. So many great, good Graveland albums. Like I really like, what's the other one I really like? Memory and Destiny, Fire Chariot of Destruction, Spears of Heaven. There's so many good ones, but this is ultimately my favorite Graveland album. So yes, coming in at number 11, Graveland with Creed of Iron. Absolute classic. Okay, now we're coming up to number 12. Okay, I should be able to rely on this. So yes, we have Horna with, I always miss the title of this one, Endvatnags something something something. Basically, this is a nonsensical album title, but if you spell the words backwards and remove the O's between each letter, it spells Evangels of Satan. So let's just say, for the purposes of this video and ease, that this album is called Evangels of Satan. So Horna are of course one of the most famous Finnish black metal bands, and yeah, well, one of my favorite black metal bands in general, and they have released a lot of good albums. They can be a bit hit and miss. There are some albums which didn't do much for me, but in general they're really good. But this is undoubtedly my favorite just because it's so incredibly evil sounding and atmospheric. Like you listen to that first track, Vihantia, like all the titles were in Finnish. That riffing is just so nasty and creepy. It sounds sinister, and like it really matches this cover art, you know, with the witch casting spells. But that's a brilliant album. What's good is this album is just chock full of riffs. Like you've got one of their main influences, Norway's Gorgoroth, of course, another classic band, and so they have a lot of those, you know, sort of heavy mammoth Gorgoroth-esque riffs. but also like the fast, creepy ones, which I mentioned, and then they also have some punky riffs, some bleak riffs. And I was listening to this in full just the other night, just to refresh myself. Really, there's no song I dislike on this album, but it's riffs galore, and they're all brilliant. The other famous song on this is Korleva Luphaus, I think that's what it's called, but you know, that starts sounding very sort of punky and a bit cheerful and happy, but then it's got these bleak, sorrowful riffs in it. So they're the two standout tracks for me, Vihantia and Korvela Luphaus, or however you say it, but the whole album is really good. Sorry, my Finnish pronunciation is non-existent, but yeah, this is a double one you can see here, but absolutely great, and yeah, just riffs for days on this album. So yeah, undoubtedly my favorite Horner album. I'll just show you the inside to give you a little bit of context. Yep, so this was the two main members in this were Shatraug, who is the band's guitarist, and also the one-time vocalist of this band, Corvus, and I think he was in this band for a couple of albums. There's the Horner logo, very cool. Yeah, so I don't know if it was just the two of them who mainly played on this, but yeah, absolutely awesome album. So I think if you're a fan of Gorgoroth, you will definitely like Horner, but this album is simply amazing, so that's why it makes my top 20. So Horner with Entvatnags, or Evangels of Satan. Okay. Okay, coming into 13. All right, up next we have Immortal with Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism. Undoubtedly my favorite Immortal album, obviously. This is just so brilliant. Like, in my opinion, Immortal is just such a classic band, and I do like all eras of the band, including the ones where Abbott took over on guitar, you know, where it was Abbott and Hogg. But for me, my favorite albums are undoubtedly when the band was a three-piece with Abbott, Demonaz, and various drummers. Sometimes it was Abbott who was the drummer. On this one, it was Armageddon. On Blizzard Beasts, it was Hogg, so that was his introduction to the band. But yes, this is the best, and I'll tell you why. The first four Immortal albums are my favorites, undoubtedly, because they have the classic lineup, but also the great sound. But what sets this one apart from the other three of the first four albums is that this one is loaded with atmosphere. There's obviously a strong influence from Bathory, which is very obvious, but nothing wrong with that at all, because, you know, Bathory is a fantastic band which always creates a special feeling. Yeah, like, you'll know that the subsequent three albums by Immortal, they concentrated a lot on speed and blasting, and there's nothing wrong with that. They do have that on this album, except this album's a bit more mid-paced and there's more atmosphere because they incorporate elements like acoustic guitars and keyboards, and also just the production quality. It sounds really murky with the bass in the foreground. Like, it's like the bass is the main riff player and the guitar's like a snowstorm effect, and the vocals sound really sort of grim and echoey, but it really just sets such an amazing atmosphere, which is matched by this cover art, which I think is brilliant. So yeah, so many classic songs on this everyone knows, but my favorites are Unholy Forces of Evil, Pentagrams Burning. You know, that's the line in the song. Interestingly, this was the only album where Immortal made references to Satan. And then also, what was the other song I like? Yeah, Cold Winds of Funeral Dust, classic. You know, with Abbott sassing it up a bit, like, wow, like those kind of vocals. And my favorite track on the album, A Perfect Vision of the Rising Northland. A grandiose masterpiece, especially the part where he says, a wind of red-eye road, a wind of evil cold, and these almost outer space-like keyboards come in, but it just paints this picture of Norway at nighttime, you know, with snow-tipped mountains. Just incredible atmosphere, so I love this album. Yeah, nothing more to say. Immortal, Diabolical Full Moon Mysticism, a classic in my top 20. Okay, so let's just keep track here, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so we're up to number 14 now. Just a moment. Okay, number 14. We have Impaled Nazarene with Tolkomte Nors Nors Nors. So, yes, another band which probably doesn't need an introduction, but, you know, probably Finland's premier black metal band. Like, would that be fair to say? Yeah, Impaled Nazarene and Beherit were the first main black metal bands from Finland. But I know some of you have seen my video when I showed my Impaled Nazarene collection, and you might be thinking, But didn't you say Absence of War Does Not Mean Peace is your favorite album? Yes, I did at the time, but I've refined my opinion, because like Absence of War is a good album, but that's when the band had become a lot more commercially established, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it was like polished production and they were writing more sort of like memorable punky heavy metal songs. But when I really re-listened to all of their albums, I have to admit that this one is the best. This is not only the first Impaled Nazarene album I heard, but the first black metal album I ever heard in my entire life. Sorry if you've heard the story before, but some of you haven't. But at the time I was 14 years old, this was 1993, and I had just started getting into death metal, so it was a steep learning curve. And the guy in this shop in Sydney said, "Oh yeah, we also have black metal too." And I said, "What's black metal?" And he said, "That's black metal." He pointed at this as an example. So we asked if he could put it on, and he did. And when that introduction, Apologia, tumbled out of the speakers, I was terrified, like, but in a good way, because it sounded fucking scary. And then it blasted into E Alpurg Vompo with some of these riffs, you know, the screams, the keyboards, and these riffs are so haunting on this album. It makes you feel like a fog is rolling over the hill and darkness is descending upon a village. It's just so incredibly evil, and quite a theatrical album. Like, you have various different voices from Mika Luttinen, and in addition to that, like some samples, you know, of animal sacrifices, you know, the song Impure Orgies, where it's got fornicating animals, that kind of thing. And they also have some keyboard tracks. So there's a bit of atmosphere as well, but like just some of these riffs, it's so menacing and evocative. It's just absolutely incredible. This is the original press from Modern Invasion Music. That's how it was released in Australia. And I think they got the track listing out of whack a bit, but some of my favorite songs from memory, because I can't read that for shit, are E Alpurg Vompo, also In the Name of Satan, My Blessing, The Beginning of the End, The Forest, The Darkness, The Crucified, and the last track, Damnation, Raping the Angels, is incredibly atmospheric, especially with these out of control guitar solos where it's just, it makes you feel like the heavens are opening and black clouds are rolling in, you know. You listen to those guitar solos, it's almost like a chainsaw going off, but it just sounds so incredibly powerful. So yeah, just love this album, and it has special nostalgic meaning for me as well, because it was the first black metal album I ever heard, but absolutely brilliant. I think it is essential, it's cult. You know, Absence of War is a good album, but that's when they were sort of mixing different styles together, but I think the original is the best, so that's why this is in my top 20, Impaled Nazarene with Tol Kommt Nors Nors Nors. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Alright. God, I can't believe I had to check this one, but yes, up next, coming into number 15. No surprise for people who know me, Marduk with Those of the Unlight. Yep, so if you're not familiar, Marduk is my favorite black metal band. They're from Sweden, of course. One of Sweden's most famous black metal bands, and this will always be my favorite album by them. It's in fact not only my favorite Marduk album, but favorite black metal album and favorite metal album in general. Just every second commands my attention on this release. It's absolutely incredible. It's an interesting juxtaposition because it is like fast, harsh and aggressive, but at the same time melodic, atmospheric and memorable. So like yeah, like a lot of people would say that this is a far stretch. It sounds nothing like melodic death metal, but you know some melodic death metal bands like Ablaze My Sorrow, there's really fast, like chaotic but melodic riffs. It's a little bit reminiscent of that, but still don't worry, it's very, very black metal. But I just like this one because it has interludes of acoustic guitars and keyboards, which is something that they discarded later on. And that's cool too, because I love all Marduk albums. But this one just has a very special atmosphere to me. And in addition to that, the production's perfect. Like, it sounds a little bit thin, but it's raw. The drums sound really clattery, and the drummer and vocalist Joachim Afgrav, his vocals are just perfectly shrieked, and they're howled sometimes, and there's a bit of echo and reverb on them, so it just creates this incredibly dark atmosphere. Look at the picture of them in the forest, that sums up the atmosphere on there. But yeah, every track on this I love, so it's really hard for me to name a favorite. So yes, I love them all. Darkness Breeds Immortality, Those of the Unlight, Wolves, On Darkened Wings, Burn My Coffin, A Sculpture of the Night, Echoes from the Past, and Stone Stands Its Silent Vigil, all brilliant tracks. What was I going to say? Yeah, like the Echoes from the Past is an interesting track because it's an acoustic guitar and synth-based instrumental, which is something they would never do years later, but so much atmosphere on this. I thought I'd show the CD version because my vinyl version doesn't show the logo or the photos, so yeah. But yes, clearly, because this is my favorite metal album of all time, it goes without saying that I implore you to check this out if you haven't. Absolute classic album, brilliant black metal, Marduk with Those of the Unlight. Okay, coming into number 16 now, and this one shouldn't be a surprise to too many people. Of course, we're talking about Mayhem with De Mysteriis Dom Satanas. So a lot of people might say to me, oh, what a cliched choice. Yes, maybe, except cliches come from somewhere. It's because from popular opinion, like there's no denying that this is a highly influential and important black metal album, but no, I'm not choosing it just because everyone expects me to, or that's because, you know, that's almost like an unwritten rule. You know, I follow my own path. Mayhem's kind of become a household name ever since the kind of crappy Lords of Chaos movie, which came out because it went to Hollywood. You know, it's a real shame because I think that movie, it was good, it brought the history to life, but it could have been done so much better. I think if it was in the native language, you know, with Norwegian and Swedish actors, especially considering that the director, Jonas Åkerlund, is Swedish, but maybe they wanted to make it more mainstream. So anyway, a lot of people know Mayhem, but I discovered them long before that movie. But yeah, the first time hearing them on the Nordic Metal compilation, the tribute to Euronymous, where I heard the version of Freezing Moon with Dead on vocals, then I thought, wow, this band is incredible. But yes, coming to this album, you all know the history, maybe, but by the time that this album was recorded, former vocalist Dead had already taken his own life, sadly, and he was replaced by Attila on this album. And yeah, what was the Necro Butcher had left the band, so it was actually Varg Vikernes on bass from Burzum. How macabre and ironic, since he was the killer of Euronymous, the guitarist, and Hellhammer on drums, of course. But yeah, this album is absolutely brilliant. It's mammoth, it's heavy. I remember one magazine described the atmosphere as sounding like deep, dark chaos. That's because it was recorded at Grieghallen Studios in Norway by Erik Pitten Hundvin, who produced all of those other great bands like Enslaved, Emperor, and so on. So yeah, but yeah, the sound in this is like absolutely deep, dark chaos. Like Hellhammer's drums, they're so echoey. So just, I think because Grieghallen Studios is like an opera theater or something, so it's got that really echoey sound, which is awesome. The guitars are so meaty and heavy, but like the riffs are just so incredibly sinister and evil. But on that point though, they're also melodic and memorable. Like every song stands out, and it's like when you hear these riffs, they're unmistakable, and you go, oh yes, I know what song's coming now, and I love it. It's awesome. Yeah, so nothing more to say. Attila's vocals, I have to admit, when I first heard this album, I didn't particularly like Attila's vocals because I thought they were a bit weird, especially like with the crying on De Mysteriis Dom Satanas, but those vocals grew on me and I think they're absolutely great. Like Dead was more the conventional shrieking black metal vocalist, and I think one of the best black metal vocalists of all time, but Attila's approach is unique, and he sounds like the undead or something, you know, like there's some snarls, there's some harsh whispers, and sometimes it sounds like he's like bellowing, like singing dark opera, but with his raspy voice. So he's got so much incredible range on this album, and it just makes the song sound extra creepy, which is really cool. Yes, like, so my favorite songs, like every song is pretty much a classic on this, but like my favorite songs would be Funeral Fog, Freezing Moon as the first one I heard, an absolute black metal classic. That's got to be in my top 10 black metal songs of all time. Life Eternal, I remember that song used to really give me the chills when I first heard it, and I actually heard that was the song where Dead wrote the lyrics just before he took his own life. I don't know if that's a rumor, but the song, like, it's really eerie and creepy. I just love that. And yeah, Buried by Time and Dust, I really like a lot. Also De Mysteriis Dom Satanas. At first I didn't like it because of Attila's crying vocals, but then I thought that was actually really cool. And then, of course, like even Cursed in Eternity, that's grown on me. So it's a bona fide classic, this album. You also have Pagan Fears, From the Dark Past. There you go, I've mentioned all the songs. but all absolutely brilliant. But yes, my favorite song is Freezing Moon, especially the version with Dead, but the version on this album is also fantastic. So yeah, absolutely awesome. So yes, maybe it's cliched, but I could not exclude this from the top 20. Mayhem, an incredibly influential band. Like, no Euronymous, no Mayhem, no Norwegian black metal, but I'm not just saying because it's influential. I think the sound of this album is awesome, but enough rambling. You know the album. If not, go and listen to it. Mayhem with De Mysteriis Dom Satanas. Okay. All right, coming into number 17 now. So we're near the end of the list. I did a lot of deliberation, but this made my top 20. We have Medieval Demon with Medieval Necromancy. So this is a band which I only discovered a few years ago through Hell's Headbangers Records, but they just blew me away. This is a Greek black metal band, but what's interesting about them is, if you're not familiar, I love Greek black metal, Hellenic black metal. I'm a really big fan, and that's often characterized by a more sort of soulful, melodic rather than evil sound. But what's interesting about this band, Medieval Demon, is they retain certain elements of that melodic Greek sound, but at the same time they do make it dark and evil. So it's got this very sort of hammer horror atmosphere, especially with the keyboards they use, and like church pipe organs, I think, and also some other theatrical elements, which I'll talk about. But yeah, absolutely brilliant band. They don't just rely on theatrics. Like, the riffs are fucking awesome in this, like very catchy, and the production's nicely raw for you to, enjoy that bite to the atmosphere, which is excellent. But yeah, so many good tracks on this. I really love this album. And some of my favorites would be Spell of the Arcadian Priests. That's got some haunting clean guitars and warped, twisted, and evil synth lines. So what more could you ask for? Or I also really like La Litanie de Satan, which Necromantia had a song title with the same title. This features some piano and very impassioned spoken words in French, so it's quite a theatrical song. I also really like, did I write it down here? 6. Shit, you know what? I don't have my glasses or magnifying glass, but track 6 is really good as well. And that's got some mid-paced riffs and enchanting and mysterious keyboards. And as people may have heard me say, my favorite track on this album is number 7, Black Moon Sacrifice. Go and listen to that song. You absolutely must, because it's absolutely brilliant. This is Black Moon Sacrifice has some upbeat mid-paced riffs, majestic keyboards, and somber acoustic guitar moments. And the chorus is absolutely spellbinding, especially that chant which says, In nomine Dei nostri Satanis Luciferi excelsi, and they repeat it with the keyboards in the background. It's enchanting, spellbinding. It's absolutely brilliant. So yes, this is an absolutely fantastic album. I also really like Into the Caves of Blood, track 8. That's very catchy and atmospheric with the riffs and synths. So yes, that pretty much sums it up, that song, In the Caves of Blood. This album is very riffy, so the guitar riffs stand out for themselves, but it's also very theatrical. It's very atmospheric with the keyboards. Everyone's in corpse paint here, so absolutely brilliant, and in my opinion, original black metal. So this band I only discovered a few years ago, but yes, it has made my top 20. So go and check this band out, but especially this album if you haven't. Medieval Demon with, I'm just checking, yeah, Medieval Necromancy. Classic, but original Greek black metal. All right, so we're coming to the end, guys, which you might be relieved about. Okay, number 18 now. Satanic Warmaster with Carillion Satanist Madness. Yeah, undoubtedly my favorite Satanic Warmaster album. I used to deliberate between this one and Nachtsera, depending on the day, but now I've concluded assuredly that this is my favorite. So if you're not familiar, Satanic Warmaster, one-man black metal band from Finland. The main man behind this project, Werewolf, he was originally the vocalist for Horner, but then branched out on his own. And he's released a spate of fantastic albums. If you haven't heard me say this, I think Werewolf is such an incredibly talented musician, because he makes his riffs just so catchy, so memorable, and above all, so emotive. Like, sometimes I just laugh to myself thinking, how can he do it? Like, these riffs are just absolutely ingenious, glorious, and very sort of, emotive, like depending on the atmosphere. Sometimes they're melancholic, sometimes they're sorrowful, sometimes they're triumphant, but always catchy and always memorable. The vocals are grim, and he also incorporates some keyboards in this, like in the opening track, the Vampire Tyrant, there's some keyboards incorporated, and it sounds a bit like influenced by folky Finnish music, perhaps. So there's, like Karelia is a region in Finland, so I think there is a strong Finnish influence on this album, no surprise. But yeah, all of the songs are so good, like the title track, Karelian Satanist Madness, excellent memorable chorus, which is almost sing-along. And then, sorry about this font, yeah, track 3, True Blackness. What I like about that track is there's a riff which must be a tribute to Mayhem's Death Crush. So it's a bit like how Anvil wrote that song, what was it, Through With You, which was like a slight variation of Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water riff. So this song, True Blackness, it's a slight variation on Mayhem's Death Crush, but still really cool. My Dreams of 8 is another fantastic song. Like, it's a slow song, but with so many emotive riffs in that and some spoken words. It's absolutely brilliant. Then, yep, Eaten by Rats and 666 are good. Then track 7, My Kingdom of Darkness. Very memorable with the melodies and keyboards in that song. And that's probably the most anthemic track on the album, My Kingdom of Darkness. And then the final track, Blessed Be the Grim Arts. I absolutely love that song. That is kind of like an atmospheric outro. It's also, imagine like a Satanic Warmaster version of Manowar, where it's all like just keyboards and pipe organs with grim spoken word vocals. So it's sort of like a somber hymn to the dark side. But really well done. And then towards the end they incorporate some flutes, like the song just builds and builds, and that's sort of the calm after the storm. But literally every song on here is absolutely fantastic. Riffs for days, so memorable. If you're a fan of black metal and you haven't heard this album, correct yourself. You won't be disappointed with this. It's absolutely brilliant. So, Satanic Warmaster with Karelian Satanist Madness. Okay. Now, coming into number 19. And I've forgotten number 20, so I'll go and get that when it comes to the time. So, number 19, we have Satyricon with The Shadow Throne. Okay, so Norway's Satyricon, one of the most established bands in black metal. The opinion about them is divided, but I think they're a brilliant band. This is obviously not the original artwork. The original artwork's kind of obscure. That's it, if you can see it. Yeah. But the first album I actually heard by Satyricon was Nemesis Divina, and I thought that was very good, especially after I heard the song Mother North. But then my friend Sylvia from Italy, she taped me this album. This was in the late 90s, back in the tape trading days. And I was just blown away. I thought this album is even better. Dark Medieval Times, the one before it, most people say that's their favorite, and I totally get it. That's a brilliant album too. But for me, what I like about this album is, as Moonfog Productions described it, the cold, grim atmosphere is like a hammer in the face of God. So that sort of sums up this album. The production is just perfectly grim, like it's rough and grainy, but it gives it that raw edge and atmosphere. The vocals are incredibly grim, and of course there are, in addition to some fantastic riffs like the tremolo fast riffs, you also have some great mid-pace riffs, and also the incorporation of acoustic guitars and keyboards, which I use to fine effect to make these songs so melodic and so memorable. Just so many iconic standout moments on this album, the Shadow Throne, like, Satyr's declaration of war at the beginning of Fitte Christs Død. Sorry, Norwegian, so that means the White Christ's death, I think, but that Kampen Medgod, the part, yeah, it's awesome, but then it starts with that symphonic moment with all of the keyboards, and I really like the piano solo in that song. In the Mist by the Hills has some rocking, catchy riffs, which are really cool, and also some more grandiose keyboards. Woods to Eternity is really epic and features some acoustic guitars. Viking Land, that song has a strut to it, like this almost catchy, punky riff, but it's just so cool, especially uplifted by the keyboards and the choral Viking vocals in that song. So Viking Land would be one of my favorites. Dominions of Satyricon is awesome as well, especially the way they use the keyboards on that. Like, it's got a sort of like gallopy, bouncy tempo to it, and the keyboards just make it sound so melodic, grand and majestic, so it's absolutely brilliant. Yep, so great album. The only like 7 tracks on this. In my opinion, it drops off a bit with tracks 6 and 7, like The King of the Shadow Throne and En Svart Kvista. I think that, but those tracks are by no means bad. Like The King of the Shadow Throne, I just never got into that song much, but the outro, En Svart, whatever it is, that's like a atmospheric keyboard track, but really good. But it still makes the grade for my top 20 albums, black metal albums, because it's absolutely brilliant. It has a lot of nostalgic value, but because of the production and the musicianship, the atmosphere is unique. So I totally get some people say Dark Medieval Times is their favorite. Some people say Nemesis Divina. So it's usually among these top, like these first 3 albums. But for me, undoubtedly, this is a dark Nordic classic, Satyricon with the Shadow Throne. All right, and now we've just got to come to number 20, which I forgot to get, so just bear with me one moment. I'll be back shortly. All right, sorry about that, guys. So coming into number 20, I could not leave this out of the list, absolutely not. We have Ulver with Bergtatt. Now, Ulver is the Norwegian word for wolves, except I've heard Norwegians, including, you know, people from the band and Roger, pronounce it as Ulver. So I'm sorry, that's just my attempt, but yes, it means wolves. This is an absolutely brilliant band. What's interesting about them is the first 3 albums. This is their debut album, and obviously my favorite. It's absolutely brilliant. This is melodic, folky black metal. Then the second album, they made an acoustic album with a lot of just choral vocals, like all clean vocals. And then the third album, Natten's Madrigal, that's like really fast and raw and harsh, like Transylvanian Hunger on steroids. And then after that, they became an electronic band. So very interesting. But for me, this is absolutely my favorite album. So good. The first time I heard this, it blew me away, because it's like, especially the first track, I Trollskog Faren Vild, the way that opens up with the melodic music and Garm's astonishing clean vocals. I'd never heard anything like it, but to give you an idea, his clean vocals are a bit similar to the clean vocals featured in early Enslaved albums. But yeah, so the first track is entirely melodic. It doesn't sound black metal at all, but just so Nordic and atmospheric. But then you go into track 2, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce because it's difficult, but that goes into very fast black metal. So like fast, raw and harsh, but like the production is not too terrible, but you've just got those very bleak, emotive riffs, which sound very Norwegian. And also in that part, they even have some moments where they shift into these sort of like acoustic guitar sections with clean vocals. So that's really interesting. The same with track 3. So it's mostly fast black metal, but then they have some theatrical moments of sounds of someone wandering through the forest, and some pianos, I think. And then you go over to track 4, which has some very choral Viking vocals again, and it's very sort of hypnotic. And then the track 5, Bergtatt, it goes back into fast black metal. So it sort of interchanges between fast black metal, which is very, you know, traditionally Norwegian sounding, with you know, clean vocals, acoustic guitars, and a very sort of like Viking pagan atmosphere. But absolutely brilliant stuff. Just the whole album, it really is a journey. And they call these titles, they give them chapters. So kapitel, I think in Norwegian means chapter. But yeah, so I don't know if it's a story. I think so. All lyrics are in Norwegian or ancient Danish, I think. But yes, musically, absolutely fantastic album. And Garm is such a great vocalist, because he's got that harsh snarl with the raspy black metal vocals, but then he can actually sing the clean vocals so well. And with those like melodic moments, it's just so memorable. So absolutely brilliant album. With this band, start with the first 3 albums, because they are the black metal related ones. After that, they became an electronic band, so sound completely different. But for me, this is where it's at, an absolute classic. Ulver with Bergtatt. So that's number 20. So there you have it, guys. That concludes my list of top 20 black metal albums. So today I did 11 to 20, and remember I also did some other runners up. So that concludes my list. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you like my choices, but I'm not expecting you to say I'm right. Tell me your choices. If you disagree, that's fine. But yeah, in my opinion, completely unbiased, apart from my own enjoyment of the music, these are my top 20 black metal albums. So if you haven't watched part 1, feel free to go ahead and do so. And that's it. I look forward to hearing from everybody in the comments. I got a lot of feedback from the last video, so tell me what you think. You can be honest, it's all right. And yes, if you haven't subscribed yet and you enjoy this video, please feel free to do so. That would be great. I also plan to eventually do like a top 20 death metal albums video as well. And I'm also open to suggestions, so let me know. But yeah, in the meantime, thanks a lot for your support of the channel. I hope you continue to watch. I've been talking too much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.